Hello everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to kick off our session today with a focus on data security. Today's presentation is titled Data Security, and we might explore some key topics around protecting information and ensuring privacy. Over the next few minutes, we'll cover the fundamentals of data security, best practices, and emerging trends. But for now, let's just get started and dive into why this topic is more important than ever. Let's take a closer look at the 4 levels at which you control data access: organization, objects, fields, and records. Starting with organization, this is about managing access at a broad level for your entire company. You can maintain a list of authorized users, set password policies to ensure security, and also limit logins to certain hours or locations to prevent unauthorized access outside of work hours or from untrusted places. Moving on to objects, this is where control becomes more specific. By setting permissions on a particular type of object, such as accounts or contacts, you can prevent certain groups of users from creating, viewing, editing, or deleting records associated with that object. For example, you might allow interviewers to view positions and applications, but not make changes or delete them. To manage this effectively, we recommend using permission sets and permission set groups. They help you organize and assign permissions efficiently across your users. These levels of data access work together to give you a comprehensive way to secure your data, making sure the right people have the right access at the right level. Let's take a closer look at the 4 levels at which you control data access: organization, objects, fields, and records. Now, starting with objects, access to object-level data is actually the simplest thing to control. By setting permissions on a specific type of object, you can prevent a group of users from creating, viewing, editing, or deleting any records associated with that object. For example, you might want interviewers to view positions and job applications, but not have the ability to edit or delete them. To manage this effectively, we recommend using permission sets and permission set groups. These tools help you control which objects users can access and what permissions they have for each one. This layered approach to data access ensures you can tailor permissions precisely to your organization's needs. Let's take a closer look at the 4 levels at which you control data access: organization, objects, fields, and records. Today, I want to focus on fields, which are a key part of this structure. You can restrict access to specific fields even if a user already has access to the overall object. For example, imagine a position object. You might want to hide the bonus fields from interviewers, but still allow hiring managers and recruiters to see them. This level of control helps you fine-tune who sees what, without restricting access to the entire object. You also set these field permissions using permission sets and permission set groups, giving you flexible ways to manage access based on roles and responsibilities. This layered approach ensures that your data remains secure, yet accessible to those who need it, helping you maintain both security and efficiency across your organization. Let's take a closer look at the 4 levels at which you control data access: organization, objects, fields, and records. Today, I want to focus on the record level, which is often where the most nuanced control happens. You can allow specific users to view an object, but then restrict their access to only certain individual records within that object. For example, an interviewer might be able to see and edit their own reviews, but not those of other interviewers. This level of control is essential for maintaining data privacy and integrity. There are 4 main ways to manage record-level access. First, organization-wide defaults set the baseline, defining the default level of access that users have to each other's records. Typically, you'd start by locking down data as much as possible using these settings. Then, you can use other tools to grant access selectively. Next, role hierarchies come into play. They allow users higher up in the hierarchy to access all records owned by users below them. This makes managing supervisory access straightforward. Sharing rules are another powerful tool. They act as automatic exceptions to the organization-wide defaults, giving specific groups of users access to records they wouldn't normally see. Think of them as targeted permissions that open up access for a subset of users. Finally, manual sharing gives owners of individual records the ability to share those records with specific users. While it's less automated than the other methods, it's especially useful in situations like when a recruiter is going on vacation and needs to temporarily assign ownership of a job application to someone else. All these levels, from organization-wide defaults to manual sharing, work together to give you flexible, precise control over who can see and edit what. This layered approach helps ensure your data remains secure while still being accessible to those who need it. Let's talk about how we can audit system use effectively. Auditing is crucial because it provides us with important insights to diagnose potential security issues or respond to actual incidents. It's a good practice to have someone in your organization perform regular audits to catch any unusual activity early. When doing this, look out for unexpected changes or patterns of use that might indicate abuse or a security breach. Now, many objects in the system include fields that store who created or last modified the record. This basic information can be very helpful in tracking down issues or understanding changes. You also have the ability to review login history, which includes both successful and failed login attempts over the past 6 months. This helps identify any suspicious login activity. For more detailed tracking, you can enable field history tracking. This feature automatically records changes to specific field values, especially useful for custom objects. However, keep in mind that not all standard objects support this feature. Another powerful tool is the Setup Audit Trail. This logs any modifications to your organization's configuration, giving you a clear record of changes made to your setup. Finally, Event Monitoring allows you to see detailed information about user activity, known as events. You can look at individual events or analyze trends to quickly spot abnormal behavior. This helps protect your company's data by alerting you to suspicious activity at a granular level. Overall, these auditing tools work together to give you a comprehensive view of system use, helping you maintain security and operational integrity. Creating users in Salesforce is surprisingly simple. You can even add multiple users at once with just a few clicks. All you need to do is enter a username, an alias, and an email address, then select the appropriate role, license, and profile for each user. Of course, there are many more options available if you need them, but these are the basics to get started quickly. Once you've entered the necessary information, Salesforce automatically generates a password for each new user and sends them a notification right away. After logging in, users can update or add to their personal information as needed, which keeps things flexible and user-friendly. To create a user, you go to Setup, then use the Quick Find box to search for and select users. From there, you can click on New User to add a single user, or choose Add Multiple Users to create up to 10 users at once, saving time when onboarding a team. When entering user details, you'll input the user's name, email address, and a unique username, usually the same as their email address. Next, you'll choose the user license, which determines what profiles are available for that user. Then, select a profile to set their default settings. Finally, you'll select the option to generate a new password and notify the user, then click Save. This process makes onboarding new users straightforward and efficient, helping ensure everyone has the access they need to get started. Let's talk about deactivating a user. You can't delete a user entirely, but you can deactivate their account, which essentially prevents them from logging in. When a user is deactivated, they lose access to all records. This includes anything shared with them individually as well as records shared as team members. However, it's important to note that you can still transfer their data to other users and see their names listed on the user's page. To do this, go to Setup, use the Quick Find box, and search for users. Then, click Edit next to the user you want to deactivate. Simply uncheck the Active checkbox and click Save. Sometimes, you might find that you can't immediately deactivate an account, perhaps because the user is referenced in a custom hierarchy field. In that case, you can freeze their account instead. Freezing the account prevents the user from logging in while you're working on deactivating them. To do this, go to the user's page in Setup, click on the user's username, and then click Freeze. This process helps ensure that you can manage user access efficiently without disrupting ongoing work. Now, let's look at some of the key settings you can configure to help ensure your users' passwords are strong and secure. First, we have password policies. These allow you to set rules around passwords and login behavior, such as determining how long before users need to change their passwords and specifying the complexity requirements to make passwords harder to guess. Next, there's the user password expiration feature. This lets you force all users to update their passwords after a certain period, which is a good security practice. However, you can exclude users who have the password never expires permission, giving you flexibility. You also have the option to reset passwords for specific users when needed, which is useful if someone forgets theirs or if you suspect a security issue. Another important setting involves login attempts and lockout periods. If a user tries to log in unsuccessfully too many times, their account can be temporarily locked. And if that happens, you have the ability to unlock their access manually, ensuring smooth recovery. Finally, all these settings come together to help you set a comprehensive password policy, one that balances security with user convenience. Connecting this to our overall theme, strong password management is fundamental to safeguarding your organization's data and maintaining trust. The simplest way to control data access is by setting permissions on specific types of objects. Now, an object is basically a collection of records, like leads or contacts. By controlling permissions at this level, you can decide if users can create, read, edit, or delete records of that object. We usually recommend managing these permissions with permission sets and permission set groups because they offer more flexibility. Of course, you can also configure object permissions within profiles, but there's a key difference. Permission sets are used to assign specific object, field, and user permissions to individual users. Think of them as a toolbox. You include all the permissions needed for a particular task, like working with leads. And a user can have multiple permission sets, giving them a customized set of capabilities. Permission set groups take this a step further by grouping multiple permission sets together for easier management. Imagine them as a persona, like a sales rep. When you assign a user to a permission set group, they automatically get all the permissions from the included permission sets. And just like permission sets, users can be assigned to multiple groups. This setup makes managing access much simpler, especially when permissions need to be consistent across roles. Permission sets are reusable and flexible, which helps streamline the whole process. Profiles, on the other hand, are more about default settings, like which apps users see, record types, or page layouts. Every user gets assigned one profile, which sets the baseline for their experience. When it comes to managing object permissions, using permission sets and permission set groups gives you more granular control and easier scalability. It's a powerful way to ensure users have exactly the access they need, no more, no less. Now, to control data access precisely, you can allow specific users to view particular fields within an object, but then also restrict the individual records they're permitted to see. Record access determines which specific records a user can view or edit within each object they have access to. First, it's important to ask yourself some key questions. Should your users have open access to every record, or just a subset? If it's a subset, what rules should determine whether they can access those records? Record-level features provide multiple layers of access, so understanding which ones are configured and how they influence a user's level of access is crucial. You control record-level access in 4 main ways, listed here from the most restrictive to the most permissive. First, you set organization-wide defaults to lock down your data to the most restrictive level. Then, you use the other record-level tools to grant access to specific users as needed. Organization-wide defaults specify the default level of access for records that users don't own. Role hierarchies ensure managers can access the same records as their subordinates, with each role representing a level of data access needed by that user or group. Sharing rules act as automatic exceptions to the defaults, allowing certain groups of users to access records they wouldn't normally see or own. And finally, manual sharing lets record owners or users with the right permissions give access to individuals who otherwise wouldn't have it, whether for read or edit privileges. All these options together give you a flexible and layered approach to record-level security, helping you manage data access precisely while ensuring the right people see only what they need to see. Let's take a closer look at the role hierarchy. Essentially, it controls record access based on the user's role within the organization. Higher roles have the ability to access records owned by users in lower roles, creating a clear vertical access structure. This setup helps ensure that managers or executives can see the relevant data for their teams. Now, when we talk about record access layers, we're looking at different levels of access. The baseline is OWD, or organization-wide defaults, which set the default level of access for records. Then, we have role hierarchy, which grants access vertically based on roles. Sharing rules come into play as automated ways to share records with specific groups or roles, and manual sharing allows users to manually grant access to individual records. A key tip I want to emphasize is to start with restrictive access. Think of it as setting a tight security net. Then, open it up gradually as your business needs evolve. This approach helps maintain control while providing necessary access. Finally, connecting this all back to the overall theme, understanding how role hierarchy and record access work together enables us to design effective security models. It ensures the right people have the right access without overexposing sensitive data. Used to extend record access automatically. Works when OWD is private or read-only. There are different types of sharing rules. Owner-based sharing is one option, which grants access based on who owns the record. Criteria-based sharing is another, which grants access based on specific criteria being met. Both types can grant read or read-write access. Sharing rules can be applied to roles, groups, or public groups. It's important to remember that sharing rules cannot restrict access, they only expand it. So, they are used to give additional access beyond the default sharing settings. This helps us tailor access more precisely, especially in complex organizational structures. Overall, sharing rules are a key tool for managing record visibility efficiently and securely. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I really appreciate the opportunity to share these ideas with you. Remember, the key takeaways are all about how we can apply these concepts to make a meaningful impact. I hope you found this presentation insightful and inspiring. If you have any questions or want to discuss further, please feel free to reach out. Once again, thank you for being here and for your engagement. I look forward to seeing how you apply these insights in your work.